Good day, everybody. It's May 7th, 2025. I'm coming to you from Tehran. I keep being told I'm not pronouncing that correctly. I hope it's getting better, but it is about 5 o'clock in the evening, and I'm in the northern part of the city, which I've been told is a relatively excuse me, I'm trying to get my knapsack on here. A relatively prosperous part of the city, and it is the 5th day of the Sobh Media Festival. I've had a largely free day. I gave a speech at the Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting University this afternoon. And the focus of my speech, which I'm going to try to post on my YouTube channel, although the sound is not fantastic, was, I'm going to go this way. The whole question of whether Donald Trump is a peacemaker. And those of you who've watched my reporting over the last few months will know that this has been an important preoccupation of mine, because the answer to that question will have potentially profound implications for all of us. So in any event, that was the subject of my speech. And the rest of the day I've been free. So this is the second time I have been invited to a non-Western country by, an NGO or a political party. The first time was last year when I was invited to Venezuela by the Venezuelan Socialist Party to be an observer in the most recent election. And, I put out a number of reports about that. And this is the second time when I was invited by the Sobh Media Festival to attend and participate in this festival. And, like my venture to Venezuela, and by the way, that was not the first time I'd been to Venezuela. I'd gone there previously on my own initiative just to discover the country during the 2018 election. Not as an observer, but just as a reporter independently. So anyways, on that occasion last year when I went to Venezuela, on this occasion, I made a point of spending time just roaming the streets of the city without any guide, because I don't want, my trip to be curated. And by the way, they've assigned to me a press TV reporter who speaks fluent English. He has been extremely helpful, very generous with his time, very kind. And, he made it quite clear to me at the outset, if I needed anything, he would be available to me, whatever it might be, but that I wasn't obliged to participate in any particular activities, and there were no restrictions on my movements. He made that quite clear. And so this is the second time that I've just started walking outside of the city. I didn't have too much time to do it. The first time was the first day. This time I'm going to spend several hours. And what I'm looking for right now is the closest subway station, and finding it is quite a challenge because it's hard to find people here who speak English. My GPS isn't working, but I think I'm heading in the general direction of the nearest subway station. And my intention is to travel randomly on the subway station and show you what I see. Some interesting facts about the subway station, or the subway I should say, based on the reading that I've done. It is the largest subway system in West Asia. It carries something in the range of 3 million passengers per day. It looks, just judging from the metro map, this is what the metro map looks like. You see, it's quite large, numerous lines, I think a few hundred stations. And I'm told that each ride costs the equivalent of 5 cents. That's right, folks, 5 cents. On a related matter, I was also told by a couple of locals here that a full tank of gas, 60 liters, costs the equivalent of €1 if you have a government-issued petrol card. If you don't have that card, a full tank costs the equivalent of €2. So I'm coming to understand that there are some, important sort of daily expenses people incur in any large city that appear to be heavily subsidized by the government. And so I think if you're going to try to get a sense of what the level of prosperity here is, you'd probably want to look at purchasing power parity GDP. To the extent GDP is a useful measure of national wealth at all, you should look at purchasing power parity. I think that's generally a more accurate measure. And in fact, some time ago, I compared the nominal GDP of Iran to the purchasing power parity GDP, and the latter was substantially larger than nominal GDP. In any event, I don't know exactly where I'm going to go, what I'm going to see. I did, by the way, just come across the very first uniformed police officers that I've seen in 4 days here. They were just sort of leisurely at a corner directing traffic, and here's what I saw. Been here 4 days. These are the first cops I've seen. As you can tell, they are not wearing firearms. Maybe they have some in the motorcycle, I don't know. But I don't see any firearms. So, yeah, I have yet to see a police officer who is armed, which is quite something. At least I haven't seen any firearms, except once I actually did see one firearm, and that is, the Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting Center, where the university is, and where we've held various events throughout this festival, is a sprawling complex. It's quite enormous, and it's gated. You have to have a permit to get in, and at the entrance there was a soldier with an automatic weapon. He was just sitting back, smoking a cigarette. That is the one time I have seen a firearm since I arrived here 5 nights ago. So, I'm going to continue walking and let you know if I see anything else of interest between here and the subway station. So this is interesting. This is somebody's got a luxurious Porsche here. You can see up ahead of me there are some young ladies. Neither of them is wearing a hijab. They're walking with 2 young men. I have seen quite a few women who are not wearing a hijab in this town. Now, I raised this subject. I was invited to meet with the head of the international arm, the CEO of the international arm of the Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting Corporation. He kindly invited me to his office, where I spent 30 minutes chatting with him, and I mentioned to him, let me see if I can get through this traffic without getting killed. I mentioned to him that I'd seen a lot of women without a hijab, and he said that, strictly speaking, it is required to wear the hijab, and that prior to the major unrest that occurred, I think it was last year, or the year before perhaps. Hey, how you doing, man? Nice to see you. That prior to the unrest, there was some light enforcement, according to him, of the requirement that women wear the hijab. But after that arrest, which was related to the death of as I recall, a Kurdish woman in the custody of the Iranian police, there are conflicting accounts about what precisely happened, what caused her death. But he said since then, the little enforcement that there was has largely evaporated, at least in the city of Tehran. And, I don't know to what extent that's the full story, but certainly I've seen nothing here. And no one, in all the time I've spent in the streets, has been approached. No woman who's not wearing a head covering has been approached by anybody and subjected to pressure, as far as I can see. definitely looks like a posh neighborhood. The hotel I'm in was formerly, I'm told, the Hilton, but is now owned by an Iranian businessman. It's no longer called the Hilton. You know, as hotels go in the West, it's a reasonably nice hotel, but it is kind of worn down, dated, and I wouldn't say it's the most luxurious hotel I've stayed in, not by a long shot, but interestingly, there's 15 floors. They've put a number of us up on the top floor, people who have been invited to attend the festival. There's a young child saying hello to me, or maybe he was making fun of me. In any case, my hotel room has a balcony, and the view from the balcony, because the hotel, although it's only 15 stories, it's not a really tall building. It's up on at the base of a mountain, at the outer boundary of Tehran, and you know, the view on a clear day is quite impressive. Tehran is a massive city. Excuse me, but I've not been able to really appreciate that view because every single day there's been quite a bit of smog. Even, you know, it's not been cloudy most of the time I've been here, but the smog has prevented me from seeing the distance. Today is the clearest day that I've experienced thus far. So here's the view from my balcony, just to get a sense of the size of this city. So I've just confirmed that I'm getting close to the subway station. Come across a lovely little, I don't know if this is a stream. I would imagine that water is coming down from the mountain. I'm going to try to show you a view of the mountain at the base of which our hotel is situated, because it is quite an impressive natural feature. It is, you know, even though the temperature here has been approaching 30 degrees most days I've been here, there's a fair bit of snow on top of that mountain. It's quite enormous. Anyways, I think I'm supposed to be going over this way. How do I get up here? Okay, so this is the Shahid Sadr subway station, line 1. We are now descending into the Tehran metro. So somebody has, one of the organizers has lent me his Metro card. So I haven't figured out how to use this, but I can't imagine this is complicated. Let's see what happens. So while I'm waiting for the train, I read on Wikipedia that the subway system was constructed or completed and put into operation in 1999. So this would have been well after the Islamic Revolution. And I also read, again, I don't know whether this is accurate, that The first two cars of every train are reserved for women, but that women are free to ride on the other cars if they so choose. Needless to say, I'm not going to be boarding the women's car. Here we go, folks. My first subway ride in Tehran. As you can see, this subway station is packed with people. So I have gotten off at the Ayatollah Talagani metro stop. This was about 10 metro stations down from where I boarded the train. And the reason why I've gotten off here is because as I was on the train, I was reading, about the interesting subway stations along the number 1 line that I was taking north to south. And the Ayatollah Talagani metro station was identified as the one that is closest to the former United States Embassy, the one that was the scene of a hostage taking at the time of the revolution. And I have been trying to find somebody who can get me into that embassy. So far I have not been successful, but since I was riding by on the subway, I figured I would see if I can at least see it from the outside. Now, before I actually arrived at the subway station where I boarded the train, I was saying that I had received a comment similar to other comments I've received in the past when I've traveled to the non-Western world, that I should say something bad about the government. I don't remember what the bad thing was that I was asked to say, but the question was, why don't you say this or why don't you say that about the Iranian government? Now, to be clear about this, I've given it a lot of thought. And here's my reasoning. As far as I can tell, the coverage of the government of Iran in the Western media and every other non-Western government that has refused to be a vassal of Washington has been unrelentingly negative. There hasn't been a positive word that I have ever seen, and I'm not joking. In the Western so-called mainstream media, I have never seen a positive word spoken about the government of Iran. Now, I also have concluded from the coverage of the Western media that although a good bit of the criticisms may well be warranted, a lot of it is just utter fabrication. And a good chunk of it is also just sheer conjecture. It's not necessarily fabrication. It might be true, it might not be true, but no real credible evidence has been adduced to support the allegation. And this is, as I say, I think the case with every single non-Western government that has refused to bow to Washington. The coverage is unrelentingly negative, and although some of it is justified, a lot of it is either speculation, unsubstantiated speculation, or outright fabrication. So my thinking is simply this. Why would I, oh, by the way, that's an Israeli drone. Interesting. I wonder what this is. So my thinking is simply that, oh, and here's a gun. Why should I repeat negative commentary about the government of Iran when that is all that people are hearing and reading and seeing in the Western media? I would simply be reinforcing the impression that there's absolutely nothing good about the government of Iran. And I don't think that's true of any non-Western government. Any non-Western government that has been targeted by for regime change operations, if you look carefully and objectively at their record, you will find at least some good things that they have done for their people, for their country. And of course that varies from one government to the other. Some are more virtuous than others, some are more flawed than others, but the picture is never as simplistic and Manichaean as we are led to believe. And therefore, I wonder, this is the former United States Embassy, which they now call the U.S. Den of Espionage Museum. Now, why wouldn't I be able to get into this behemoth? I'm definitely going to come back here during business hours. So my job as a journalist, folks, this is the way I conceive of it, and not everybody may approve of my approach, is not to repeat negative things that people have had drilled into their heads for decades about non-Western governments that refuse to bow to Washington. My job as a journalist is to tell them things they don't know, including things that are not necessarily positive, things may be neutral, and to raise questions about the coverage that they're getting. That's my job. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think that these governments, whether it be the government of Russia, China, Iran, any other non-Western government that is disfavored by the West because it refuses to act as a vassal of the U.S. oligarchy. It's not to say that I believe that these governments have not done anything wrong, that there are no criticisms of them that are justified. That's not my view at all. My view is simply that that's not my role as a journalist to add to the crescendo of negativity, much of it based on speculation or fabrication, but rather to share with my audience things that they aren't getting from the so-called mainstream media of the West. And if you don't like that, well, you have the alternative not to watch my channel. Although I think that you would still benefit, even if you're not necessarily in agreement with my approach, from watching my reporting from these countries, because I believe that the on-the-ground reporting that I offer is conveying information that you're not going to get in Western media. Whether or not you agree with the entirety of my coverage, there's still utility in watching this reporting from, the ground zero of U.S. regime change operations. So, where do we go from here? Well, I think since I can't access the Den of Espionage at this moment, I'm probably going to get back on the train, head further south to Imam Khomeini Square, which I read on the train. And by the way, there was a pretty good internet connection on the train, which is not the case in Toronto, where I spent a lot of time riding the subway system. So I've now moved on from the U.S. Den of Espionage. I've walked further down what I think is Ayatollah Talagani Boulevard, and I've come to something called the Artists Park. I'm at the entrance to the park. There seems to be some festivities going on inside, so let's go have a look and see what's happening. The bus burger. I think they mean the burger bus.
with each word. Tenderness grows, tearing my fear apart. And like a laugh, wrinkles your nose, touches my foolish heart. If I caught the world in a bottle, it would still be for me.
So, what you just saw was the interior of that building behind me. Over here you'll see that there are some posters for something called the Iranian Artists Forum. You know, it's kind of bizarre, but there are little pockets of this city, the little that I've seen of it thus far, which feel not unlike New York City, where I lived for a number of years. It's really quite surprising. Anyways, I'm now leaving Artist Park, and I'm heading back towards the U.S. Den of Espionage. It's getting late. And then I'm going to head back on the subway to my hotel and continue this adventure into the city of Tehran tomorrow. I'll have more to report then. Good day, this is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from the Den of Espionage, otherwise known as the former Embassy of the United States in Tehran, Iran, on May 9th, 2025. I came here yesterday, found the facility to be closed. I just completed a tour of the facility. It was fascinating and in a weird sort of way nostalgic for me personally, because at the time I was 18 years old in 1979. A couple of hundred students, Iranian students who supported, young men who supported the Iranian Revolution, stormed the U.S. Embassy and took 53 Americans as hostages. They were released in 1981 after an accord mediated by Algeria and later dubbed the Algiers Accords. It's interesting to read the Wikipedia entry about this hostage crisis. It describes it as a terrorist attack and says that the students who took the hostages were armed. But I'm going to start by showing you a video. It's about a 3-minute long video of a report done by an American journalist and his camera crew back in 1979. And in the interview, the main part of it is a discussion with one of the persons who was taken hostage, a young lady, an Iranian American who worked at the embassy, and she recounts exactly what happened. After you listen to her account, I will take you for a tour of the facility, now called the Den of Espionage. But just compare what she has to say about the hostage taking to the description on Wikipedia of this being a terrorist attack by armed students. Otherwise, quite an interesting experience, and here's what I saw.
To the Iranian demonstrators who set fire to it, this was a symbol of victory. 2 days earlier, several hundred young people, mainly students at Tehran University, had taken over the embassy. We are not occupiers, they said. We have thrown out the occupiers. But instead of chasing all the Americans out of the compound, the Iranians imprisoned them in a building somewhere on these grounds. They have been hostages ever since. This morning, for the first time since the hostages were put under lock and key, one of the captives, blindfolded, was brought out into the open. He is Harry Rosen, the embassy's press attaché. He was turned to face reporters and cameramen and several hundred Iranian demonstrators outside the embassy's gates. "Yankee, go home," they cried, but they made no attempt to harm him. Eventually, he was led back to join the other captives who had been kept out of sight. But this young woman was released a few hours after the embassy was seized Sunday. She worked there as a low-level interpreter. She is an Iranian who spent time studying in the United States, and her name is Behesht-e Zahra. She recalls how the embassy fell. You were at the embassy when it was taken over on Sunday.
Yes, I was.
What happened?
About 10:15, a group of demonstrators came in front of the building, in front of the embassy compound, and they walked in.
They walked in?
They actually
Did
walked
anyone
in.
try to stop them?
No, I don't believe so.
Because?
They said that they just wanted to stage a sit-in, and
What
they didn't
happened
want
next?
to harm anyone. They came in front of the chancellery. We saw them through the window. They had a banner saying, "We don't want to harm anyone, we just want to stage a sit-in."
How did the people at the embassy react to that, the guards?
We were taken on the second floor, maximum security floor, and we were given tear gas masks, and we were told to stay calm.
What happened after that?
A couple of hours went by, and we heard a siren. When I asked one of the Marines what had happened, they said that they had stormed the building.
They, meaning the students?
The students, yes. They
What
came inside the
happened? What
building.
happened after that?
Well, they came behind the door where we were held, and they said, if you all get out, and if you don't resist, we will not harm anyone, and we just want to stage a sit-in, and we just want to ask a couple of questions. So they came in, the Marines opened the door, and they came in, and they took all of us, blindfolded us, tied our hands behind our backs, and they took us.
Did any of you try to resist?
No, none of us.
Were any shots fired during the takeover?
No, just tear gas canisters.
Were any of the students armed?
No, none of them were armed. A couple of them had sticks.
Were there any fights?
No, no scuffles, no fights.
No scuffles between the U.S. Embassy personnel?
No, everything was calm.
It was another small victory for the activists who are fully backed by their country's supreme ruler, the Ayatollah Khomeini. It seems the Iranian students have the initiative. The next move is evidently up to the United States.
Stephen F. Cohen, a scholar who deserves great respect. Predicting the demise of the U.S. So I just secured permission to shoot videos in here after informing them I was a journalist. You'll see that this room was used to hold important and security sessions to prevent tapping conversations. A picture of the now departed Jimmy Carter, who had the misfortune of having to preside over this crisis in U.S. foreign policy, the revolution in Iran, and there's Benjamin, and the taking of hostages here. So, as you can see, this room was used by senior embassy staff, including the chief of mission for Iran. Apparently, the espionage technology back in those days left something to be desired. This stuff looks ancient now. Horrifying to think that I was actually a young man when this happened. That's how old I am. like a ticker tape parade in here. It must make the blood of the CIA boil that in the former embassy of the United States, they've displayed photos of Qasem Soleimani, Hassan Nasrallah, Hashim Safieddin, Yahya Sinwar, Ismail Haniyeh, and also Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, and there's Hugo Chavez, Fidel Castro, and Ernesto Che Guevara. Oh, and Simon Bolivar for good measure. And Mao Zedong. More ancient technology. Wow, now I see why they call this the Den of Espionage. Hello. So this room was used apparently for encryption, decryption, and observing of received and transmitted messages. Wow. It's American spies, they mean business. I think these might have been the hostages. And there's one of the most notorious war criminals in American history, Henry Kissinger. I've now come down to the Khayyam metro station to visit the Grand Bazar. I guess this was an obligatory part of my exploration of Tehran because this is reputed by many to be an important part of the history of the city. So I've just entered it now, and I'll be walking from one end to the other and see what I can see. That's a lot of money. 150 euros. Are we almost finished? Oh, man.
Okay.
How much is this?
This
It's 10,450,000
yes.
real. Okay, for 150 euros. Interesting.
Okay.
That's a lot of dough. Okay. Now, I'm a little surprised by the fact that what I was expecting, frankly, was to see aromatic Persian spices, Beautiful tapestries, Persian rugs, elaborate pottery. So far, it looks predominantly like low-end, mass-produced merchandise, particularly bras. There are a lot of bras here, which is odd. Not something I expected to see. There's also, of course, men's underwear. Some more ladies' underwear. More bras. And here we have yet more men's underwear. Some socks for a change of pace. More socks. More bras. Well, this isn't quite as exotic and Persian as I had anticipated. Now here, if you happen to be a Yankee lover, it's an American bra. Jeans for a change of pace. Seem to have a traffic jam. Well, I've now returned back to the area where my hotel is situated. I'm, anyways, about a couple kilometers away. I'm halfway from the subway station back to my hotel after spending a good couple of hours at the Grand Bazar in central Tehran, doing some shopping for my family. And I just stopped here to have a rest in a park that I just chanced upon. I didn't know there was a park here, and it's a very pleasant place. There are children running around playing. As you can hear, there's singing. There's been music playing of various types the entire time I've been sitting here. Been here about for 20 minutes now. And I am now on the southern outskirts of Tehran in what is the largest cemetery in the country. It's called Behesht-e Zahra, or Paradise of Zahra. It is truly immense. In order to get to where I'm currently standing, we had to drive through many different sections of the cemetery. There are probably thousands of people here, I would estimate, and it's just a normal day in terms of the activities at this cemetery. Right here, I am standing in a square in the section of the cemetery that is devoted to people who have died for the Islamic Republic in various military conflicts, but overwhelmingly during the Iran-Iraq War, which took place from 1980 to 1988. I'll come back to that war in a minute. I just want to give you a sense of the enormity of this place. There must be certainly thousands, if not tens of thousands of soldiers buried here. And the soldiers who are buried here are ones who came from Tehran. There are numerous other major cemeteries around the country where soldiers who died in the Iran-Iraq War were laid to rest. So you'll see behind me, all around behind me, are different sections of the martyrs part of the cemetery. So this is not for civilians, all this, it's just for soldiers killed in action. Now, the war in 1980 was launched by Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein. There was no provocation, no lawful justification for the war. He believed, apparently, in the aftermath of the Islamic Revolution, which had happened about a year prior to the invasion of Iran, that Iran was very weak, and he was apparently very fearful of the fact that the revolutionary Islamic government would promote a similar type of revolution within Iraq. Saddam Hussein's government was secular, and furthermore, he was, for all intents and purposes, a dictator and had no interest in being removed from power. Also, the majority of the population of Iraq is Shia and was at the time, but the government of the regime of Saddam Hussein was predominantly Sunni, as was he. So he was very concerned about that fact as well, that a Shia revolutionary Islamic government in Iran would arouse passions amongst the Shia population of Iraq. So he thought, given the weakness of or the perceived weakness of the Iranian military in the aftermath of the revolution, that this would be a relatively quick and painless war that would end in victory for his forces. He was quite mistaken about that. Although initially there were very significant territorial advances by the Iraqi military, within a period of about 2 to 3 years, Iran recovered all of the land that it had lost and then began a counteroffensive into Iraqi territory. Eventually, that counteroffensive stalled. The forces were pushed back, and in 1988, the war was ended by agreement in what was essentially a stalemate with no territorial changes and no reparations being paid, even though Iraq had clearly been the aggressor. The estimates are that the war cost both Iraq and Iran collectively about $1 trillion economically in damages. The casualties on the Iranian side are unclear. Estimates range from 105,000, I'm talking here about military casualties, 105,000 to 500,000 dead. Obviously, there must have been many more wounded, and I haven't been able to find any kind of reliable estimate about the number of Iranian civilians who died. The casualties on the Iraqi side were comparable, although again, it's quite difficult to get a very clear and reliable number on precisely the number of dead on the Iraqi side, either military or civilian. The most notorious aspect of that war, perhaps, certainly from the perspective of someone like myself who is from the West and who is deeply concerned about Western imperialism, is that Saddam Hussein made extensive use of chemical weapons in the Iran-Iraq war. And a declassified CIA report estimated that the Iranians suffered approximately 50,000 dead as a result of the use by Saddam Hussein of chemical weapons. And the casualties continued to mount because of the long-term effects of these chemical weapons. And it's now estimated that the total casualties from chemical weapons used by Saddam Hussein is in excess of 100,000 people. The materials and expertise needed to develop these chemical weapons came from the West. And the 5 countries, according to Iraqi documents, which provided the necessary assistance, were the United States, Britain, France, the Netherlands, and West Germany. So if you had any illusions about the virtues of the West German or Netherlands or French governments in the 1980s, that should put those illusions to rest. In addition, a declassified CIA report showed that in the latter stages of the war, the American government provided intelligence to the Iraqi military as to the location of Iranian forces, knowing full well that the Iraqis would use chemical weapons on those forces, and in fact they did do that. So the extent of Western complicity in Saddam Hussein's deadly use of chemical weapons is deep indeed. Now, what I find really shameless about the Western corporate media coverage of Iran, and there's so many respects in which it is shameless, is that you never hear about these facts in the Western corporate media. The alternative media talks about these historical facts, but you never hear about them in all of the reporting about Iran. These are obviously considerations. These are, painful episodes in the history of the country that are seared into the memory of its people and its leaders. And surely these historical injustices influence the attitude of the leadership of the country and its people towards the West. And yet you never hear any discussion of this whatsoever. It's just unrelenting claims that Iran is an aggressor, that it's a major state sponsor of terrorism, that it has no cause to feel aggrieved vis-a-vis the West or its proxies in the region. And by the way, one of the biggest supporters of Iraq during the war, apart from chemical weapons, was the US-backed Saudi autocracy, which gave huge amounts of money to Saddam in a bid to crush the Islamic Revolution. But to go back to the point here, if you're going to try to inform the public about, why the Iranian government has whatever policies it currently has towards the West, surely that is relevant information. Yet you'll never see it reported in the Western media. Another fact that is routinely excised from the discussion in the Western corporate media is that in the 1950s, the British and American intelligence agencies orchestrated a coup that removed from power a democratically elected, largely secular Iranian president by the name of Mohammad Mossadegh. And the reason that they did this was that Mossadegh wanted to nationalize the Anglo-American oil company so that he could put the vast oil wealth of the country to use for the benefit of the people of the country. And for that unpardonable sin, he was overthrown in a coup. That too is a fact that is never mentioned in the Western corporate media in all of the reporting on Iran, even though it is certainly a factor which influences the attitude of the country's leadership towards the West. And you have to go to the alternative media to find any kind of discussion of that at all. In any case, I hope that my brief presentation to you here has given you a sense of the enormity of the sacrifice that the Iranian people made to defeat the Western-backed aggressor Saddam Hussein in the Iran-Iraq War. All around me, I've come to another segment of the martyrs section of the cemetery. You can see a great many Iranian soldiers have been laid to rest here. So as I was walking out of the martyrs section of the cemetery, I came across this poster of Qasem Soleimani and Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. I'm not sure who the third figure on this poster is. I imagine that is an important figure from either the Lebanese resistance or the Iranian military. And then over here, you see images of Ayatollah Khomeini and Khamenei. And behind these large images, I'm told this is this symbol here directly in front of me on the granite wall is the symbol of the Iranian military, and that this is a special section for martyred soldiers who exhibited extraordinary sacrifice and valor. This is another section, obviously, of the martyrs' cemetery. These ribbons that you see are worn by Iranian soldiers in combat. Green, red, and yellow ribbons. Presumably these are the helmets of the fallen soldiers. While I was walking over here, my guide, Alireza, pointed out to me that there was a young lady who was placing seeds on top of the graves, bird seeds, the purpose of which is to attract birds so that they'll come and alight on the graves of the fallen soldiers. I was told that this is a sign of respect. Well, we've stopped on our way back to our hotel in the north of Tehran after visiting the Behesht-e Zahra cemetery on the southern outskirts of the city in a neighborhood known as Yosef Abad. This is an area with a relatively high concentration of Jewish residents of the city of Tehran. And behind me is a synagogue. That synagogue takes its name from the neighborhood. It's the Yosef Abad synagogue, and it is apparently one of the larger ones in the city of Tehran. You'll be interested to know, perhaps, that there are in fact over 30 active synagogues in Tehran and a number of other active synagogues throughout the country. The population, according to the most recent census of Persian Jews, is a little bit less than 9,000. The number has decreased dramatically from 2009. At that point in time, it was estimated that there were 25,000 Persian Jews. The reasons for which there has been a rapid decline, your guess is as good as mine, but I suspect it has something to do with the relations between Israel and Iran. In any case, the Jewish community has been present here in Iran for over 2,700 years. It dates back to biblical times, and it's one of the oldest Jewish communities in the diaspora. Unfortunately, because the synagogue is closed today, we're not going to have the opportunity to speak to members of the Jewish community. But I thought you'd be interested to know that there are thousands of Jewish people living here peacefully, coexisting with their fellow Iranians and that have been here in this country for a very long time. Hi everybody, I'm now at the airport in Tehran. It's late on the evening of May 9th. I'm preparing to return to Greece through Istanbul. First of all, let me wish everybody, and particularly our comrades in the former republics of the Soviet Union who sacrificed so much in the defeat of Nazism, but all persons, all peoples, all nations that contributed to that defeat, whoever, wherever they may be, on this Victory Day. And with that being said, although Nazism suffered a grievous blow in the Second World War, we can see all too clearly today that the job has not been completed. There are elements of Nazism resurging, as a matter of fact, in various parts of the world, including in Palestine. Perhaps there we're seeing more Nazism than anywhere on earth since the end of the Second World War, and it is incumbent upon all of us to finish this job. In any event, this concludes my trip to Iran. I've been here for a week. I've spent much time speaking with fellow Iranians. I've spent a lot of time speaking with various persons from various walks of life in Iran. Also met with a number of foreign dignitaries and journalists, some of whom I've been following for years, but I'd never actually had the opportunity to meet them personally. I've probably spent a good 24 hours or more walking the streets of Tehran, covering 25 or 30 kilometers, perhaps more. I wasn't really keeping track. I was in the north of Tehran, I was in the center, I was in the south of Tehran. Tried to see as much as I could in the limited time available to me. And as I indicated on the very first day when I published my first report from Iran about a week ago, I'm very surprised by what I've learned here. And I can't tell you that I'm anywhere close to being an expert in this country, its politics, its culture, its history. That is certainly not the case. And in the space of a week, one can only begin to scratch the surface of a country to which one has never been before. But in scratching the surface of this country, I've come to understand two things. First of all, much of what we've been told about this country is categorically false. And secondly, this is an immensely complicated society and culture. And if we're going to, assume the responsibility of understanding the people of Iran, then it's incumbent upon us to do the hard work of consulting various sources, reliable and independent sources, and informing ourselves about the history of the place and the culture of the place and the politics of this place. So I've only begun that journey, but as I say, I'm quite confident that what I've been told my entire life about this country is almost completely nonsense. So just to give you a few examples, and I've already touched upon this in prior reporting, I see no evidence that this is a police state, no physical, maybe it is, but I certainly didn't see any evidence of that. I saw maybe 5 police officers, none of whom was armed in the entire time I was here. They were traffic officers who seemed very relaxed, not intimidating. I didn't see hardly any military personnel, and the few military personnel that I saw were not armed. I saw many women who were not wearing the hijab, hundreds of them, as a matter of fact, in broad daylight and oftentimes at night, sometimes walking alone, sometimes walking with a young man, sometimes walking with an older man, sometimes walking with one or more other women. And none of them, as far as I could tell, was being harassed either by private citizens or by authorities of the state for the choice that they made not to wear the hijab. I saw no homeless persons at all, absolutely none. I didn't see any people roaming the streets who were obviously suffering from mental illness and were not receiving the care that they needed and deserved. These are things that I see in every major Western city. I see police officers everywhere, heavily armed. I see people living in the streets. I see people who are obviously suffering from some form of mental illness and are not receiving the care that they receive. I oftentimes see this when I'm in Ottawa, the capital of Canada, just steps away from the country's parliament. And the politicians there see this every day, and they're doing absolutely nothing about it. The people here I found to be very hospitable, humble, gentle, soft-spoken, kind, and not just people who were assigned to deal with me by, the representatives of the Sobh Media Festival, just people that I met in the street randomly. My overall impression of the people of Iran is that they have much to be proud of. Although their society is undoubtedly highly imperfect, just as ours is, and there are many ways in which they can improve upon their country and their society, just as we can. Certainly, I think they have a great deal to be proud of, and I look forward to continuing to interact with our comrades in Iran and learning more about this fascinating, this extraordinary place. I hope you have found my reporting from Iran to be informative. If you have, please like and share this video, and if you're not already a subscriber, please become one, and I will be sure to continue to try to educate myself about this country, if for no other reason than to avoid a devastating war, which, as I've said, I believe is exactly where we're heading, given the current crop of abjectly degenerate leaders whom we have in the West and their unquenchable thirst for war and violence and conquest. In any case, I'm signing off for now, and thank you for watching my reporting from Iran.